At the western edge of Cape Paterson, plans are underway for a unique development designed to encourage sustainable environmental living within a healthy and vital community.
Hello, my name's Brendan Condon and I'm standing on the site of the Cape Paterson Ecovillage, and it's an absolutely beautiful site, and we're looking at turning this into a beautiful place to live. The Ecovillage will be built on principles that all Australians want on our coast: protecting our biodiversity, good sustainable design, and building a sense of community. The real beauty of this site in terms of development is that it's a clear slate. It's been cleared for many decades. What we're proposing to do is to restore 60% of this site, which once would have been a coastal heathland plant community, back to its original state. And then sensitively in the landscape, we're going to place high environmental performance housing, so sustainable housing which will provide a high quality environment for people to live. And we're also really keen on building a sense of community as well by providing community facilities, walking tracks, boardwalks and cycling paths to build a real sense of place and to link it to the Cape Paterson community proper.
The driving force of this project is the extensive environmental restoration work which will be carried out under the guidance of Australian Ecosystems, Victoria's largest revegetation company. For over 7 years, Australian Ecosystems has been turning badly degraded landscapes into thriving ecosystems, supplying and planting over 3 million plants per year. At the Waterways housing development in Melbourne's Bayside area, Australian Ecosystems won a National Environment Award for replanting the largest constructed wetland in the Southern Hemisphere. Over 1.4 million trees, grasses and aquatic plants have been successfully established, providing habitat for migratory birds and threatened frog and plant species. These restoration works are of a similar scale to those planned for the Cape Paterson site.
Here I am at the Australian Ecosystems Nursery, surrounded by about 500,000 locally Indigenous grasses and shrubs that are going to be sent out to land restoration projects. We've got a fantastic team here of botanists and horticulturalists and ecologists and engineers, and all that expertise and all the resources of this nursery we've built here will be dedicated towards doing the best job possible in restoring the heathland at Cape Paterson.
I'm involved in the Cape Paterson Coast Action Group, and each month we have working bees, and some months, many months, we do a bit of planting ourselves. So I had an idea of what it was like to plant trees, and for Australian Ecosystems to plant over 1 million, that had my mind boggling. So I contacted them and went down to Carrum Downs and had a look at their plant and was quite blown away by the size of it, the amount of plants they had, their methods. All of a sudden I realised that these people can deliver.
This coastal heathland that would have once covered this site is now very, very fragmented. It was once part of an extensive mosaic along the South Gippsland coast, and now we've got little pockets of it left. And once we restore this site, I think it'll become a really important habitat site, and it'll be a super highway for little mammals.
Well, one of the most exciting things about this project is actually the scale of the restoration we're going to attempt. It'll be the largest heathland project ever attempted in Victoria. We're going to plant over 1.4 million plants, including shrubs and wildflowers, to restore this area. We're going to plant over 20 hectares of heathland.
From a Coast Action point of view, our main charter is to eradicate weeds and regenerate Indigenous native plants, and this fits in so well with our charter.
The result of this revegetation work will be a large net gain for biodiversity at Cape Paterson, as large areas of cleared land are restored and new habitats created. It will extend the size and quality of the coastal reserve back into the Ecovillage site.
So after the initial plantings, a body corporate will be established to manage the site and employ a ranger who will be actively involved in the management of the restored bushland.
I think bringing the bush and the area back to the type of land that it was before I was even living here, hearing the stories from the old timers and that sort of thing would be really good to see the area come back to and be a healthy environment again.
In this project, we're going to be demanding a very high standard of environmental performance in the built form with sustainable architecture.
What excites me about this project is the opportunity to provide really good architecture in an ecological backdrop. So we want to make it really good quality architecture for each home. And that doesn't mean it's going to dictate certain materials. We're going to have quite a palette of different materials and shapes and sizes that are going to be encouraged. The elements that have been incorporated in the design of the houses would include the obvious things like thermal masses and double glazing, heavy insulation, sealing of all windows and doors, certainly the orientation, the shading, the configuration on the site in terms of east and west protection.
Elements of sustainable building have been done forever. We're just sort of pulling together a lot of that common sense knowledge that's out there and concentrating it in the Ecovillage so that the housing works with the environment, not against it. We are also planning for climate change by setting our closest buildings 400 metres back from the coast and 20 metres above sea level, further back than many houses in the existing township of Cape Paterson. We are also setting an example by building the first zero-carbon housing project in Australia. The Ecovillage will break new ground for Bass Coast and Australia by building 200 8.5-star houses, conserving water and energy and generating their own power from the sun. This house is one of only a handful of houses in Victoria that are zero carbon. It's been built on the coast at Portland near Warrnambool by a local builder, Peter Reifman. It looks like any other house from the outside, but when you look closely, you will notice something extraordinary. This house is so efficient that it's generating its own power from the sun and exporting a surplus back to the grid, helping to power other houses nearby with clean electricity. The house has a whole lot of common sense built into it. Correct orientation to capture the winter sun and exclude the heat of summer, thermal mass, double glazed windows to stop heat loss, zoning that closes down parts of the house not being used, cross ventilation to draw cool air through the house, and of course excellent insulation. One of the most interesting parts of this house is a thermal chimney that draws cool air from shaded areas outside and vents hot air, a natural air conditioner. It has a 10,000 litre rainwater tank, making it almost self-sufficient in water. Grey water is captured and reused on the garden. The house is beautiful, comfortable and well built. The Ecovillage will demonstrate that this type of housing can be built affordably and will be far cheaper to run into the future than conventional housing. Local Wonthaggi builder Tony O'Connell from TS Constructions agrees.
There's only half a dozen 8-star and above houses across Victoria at this stage. There's none in Bass Coast. If we've got a large number of houses that are going to be constructed to a very high standard, we have the ability to start shopping around for different prices on them and looking at different products, and that'll in turn bring the prices down and make going to that 8.5-star level much more achievable, and the people are going to have a much better, more livable house.
So why should we follow other countries and start building zero-carbon houses? I asked Dr. Graham Pearman, one of Australia's most respected climate scientists.
Well, building of houses in Australia is going to have to change in a climate change world, and we're going to be living in a world in which energy is priced a lot higher. So houses will require to be more energy efficient, and they'll be required to be more water efficient. In order to make changes, particularly in a fairly conservative industry like building, we need some leadership. So I think the Ecovillage concept is a very important concept that addresses the climate change issues but simultaneously gives other outcomes, a positive place to live, community benefits that make for better living space.
There's nothing like this in Australia. There are examples on a very localised level of 1 or 2 houses, but there's certainly not a whole development that reaches this point. So I think the Ecovillage will be used as a bit of a template for how people will start to look at a sustainable estate.